absolutely every genre of music that there is. There's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? There's only so many notes. I would rather listen to Marvin Gaye. I would rather listen to Curtis Mayfield. I would rather listen to Aretha Franklin than someone who just kind of sounds a lot like Aretha Franklin. What can you do? What should you do with your influences?
What about the late 80s LA glam scene?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how many people owe David Cassidy their look? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Let's face it, rock and roll, it hasn't been very dangerous in a while.
Everyone knows what rock and roll is. It's a very large umbrella. It covers a whole bunch of stuff.
Could you say that the Gaga gimmick was an afterthought? Like she had the songs, but they said, nah, you need more.
She's definitely one that has the talent. Yeah. Can write, can do singing, songwriting.
Started coming out to the West Coast in the early 80s. We saw Kennedy's Black Flag flipping all this, really nihilistic punk rock thing. Man, there's a lot of rules in this thing. You gotta wear this chain that way, and you gotta hate this particular kind of politics. It was just like all these rules, and we're like, what are these rules about? We want to make music. Music.
I was ready to be born ready.
Oh, yes. Sounds a bit like rock and roll, doesn't it?
10 seconds, guys.
From Mind Rocket Studios between Ohio and PA, covering the culture of popular music of yesterday and today, speaking of music, you're listening to it. With your hosts from the Raw Alternative, Rick Polo, from SYLM, Joe Sinkovich, and Lucas Golo. Here's your anchor, Jimmy Martin.
I've said that playing the blues is like having to be black twice. Stevie Ray Vaughan missed on both counts, but I never noticed. Quotes by B.B. King. Welcome to Speaking of Music. On today's episode, we're going to take on the debate around the Pharrell Williams-Robin Thicke against Marvin Gaye decision. Also, a special guest today is Mr. Fred Whitacre from the band Kitchen Knife Conspiracy.
Hello.
And we're going to just sort of dissect and do a little debating on the subject as it can be divided into copyright law and music styles and how to best express your music influences. So with all that being said, how's it going, Fred?
It's going very well, thank you. It's been a nice day hanging out here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us once again.
Fred himself is also in White Cadillac and does his own solo work and actually transcends every one of those genres and inspirations. Everything that he has goes from one genre and point. Genre.
I was just going to ask you.
I'm starting a new trend, everybody.
We thought, when Josh and I were sitting in the studio, we thought genre might be a sexy Jamaican women. Like, oh, here comes genre down the beach. We're like, that's nice.
It's great for your laundry. I use genre when I do laundry.
Yes. All I do is sing words. I don't have to say them right.
That's true.
As long as they got rhythm to them.
That's true. Just do it, yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that nothing else he gets, it's discredited because he does a whole bunch of things.
I didn't know he was in White Cadillac.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played drums in White Cadillac, and it's good times. And I like to steal, connecting to our conversation today, I like to steal music from myself. Yeah. So I sue myself for copyright laws, which is nice.
That has happened, John Fogerty.
Yes.
Yes, there was his record label. When he went solo in the 80s, I think the record label that Creedence was on, there was a song that was a little too similar, and he ended up suing himself, although he had no part in it whatsoever.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You were at the forefront of your lawsuit, though, correct, Fred?
Yes, I made all the decisions, and I lost.
Yeah? But you won.
Yeah, but I still won,
Cool.
So I feel, I'm torn.
Did you walk back and forth from both sides of the court?
Yes, I did. I still don't know which side I agreed with the most, but either way, it was a fun experience, a growing experience, if you will.
Good.
So we open up the episode with a Mind Rocket project session. The band that was doing that particular session was Idle Shades, and that song was Too Late. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of members from bands that have done Mind Rocket projects that play in Northeast Ohio that sort of rotate in and out of other bands. Like I believe that Angelo is playing bass for Harnessing the Sun now?
Actually, as of maybe a day ago, yeah.
If this is airing when it's supposed to, it's actually late May right now, June, possibly even June.
Well, if it's June, then
2001.
Be sure to look for Idle Shades on the upcoming Supporting Your Local Music Festival down at Chippers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A benefit for the Purple Cat Music Program. They're on that show. So if this is the beginning of June, hurry up and get a sitter. But you don't need one because you can bring your kids this time. It's an outside festival and it's a benefit.
Let's get to the topic of this episode. A Los Angeles jury decided that, yes, songwriters Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams ripped off Marvin Gaye's 1977 hit, Gotta Give It Up, and awarded Marvin Gaye's family $7.4 million in compensation. So whether it be this specific case or just this phenomena in general of borrowing, of expressing, of being influenced by another artist, let's get into this and dissect it like we do. And I'm going to start with Lucas because this is kind of his baby.
You see, it's one of those things where everyone who does a certain kind of thing sort of sounds like someone else who does a certain kind of thing. Like, if you have like a early 70s soul kind of sound, well, you're going to sound like a whole bunch of other people who got really famous by having a soul kind of sound. That's what you're doing. You're going to sound like that in some way, shape, or form. And that goes for absolutely every genre of music that there is. There's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? There's only so many notes. And I would rather listen to Marvin Gaye. I would rather listen to Curtis Mayfield. I would rather listen to Aretha Franklin than someone who just kind of sounds a lot like Aretha Franklin. But what can you do? What should you do with your influences? Do you wear your influences on your sleeve? Does every song sound a lot like people who you love and admire and listen to and are the reasons why you play an instrument? Or should you just take all of those influences you have and just like compress them like you would make a diamond and what you get is what you get? Like, I'm kind of okay with both, I guess, but I'm definitely guilty of, borrowing from my influences.
Yeah. Do you treat those influences like you would scraping lint from a shirt or a sweater? Or are those influences the design of that shirt, of that sweater?
Maybe not so much the design, but the fabric themselves.
The fabric, some of the threads.
Yeah.
I believe, I think I read this on the, which I'm sure they're not the first to say it, but it was on the Homegrown show on their
C93
submission form. It said something to the manner of, listen to what you send in before you send it in. We want something that we could say. It's better to say, wow, these guys sound like this band more than to say this song sounds like this band. You know what I mean? Like, it's better to say, oh, okay, well, these guys kind of remind me of this band. But if your song sounds exactly like that band, then I think that's more of not so much of an influence on what you're doing as much as just a laziness of wanting to put something out there. Because, I know that Resonant has been guilty of, we wrote a riff not too long ago that we were like, wait a minute, that sounds way too much like something off of, I think it was the Lopan. And it was like, we can't use that. We love those guys, we listen to those guys, and like, that just wouldn't be right. But if we write something else that kind of, it's like, that kind of reminds me of Lopan, that's fine. Because then it's our inspirations coming through. It's bound to happen.
Yes.
One of the things, that I've always suggested to musicians, up and comers too, while you're still in the garage finding your sound, don't be afraid to actually play covers. Or possibly play the songs as they are. Don't try to jazz them up right off the bat with your own. Find your sound. Play through covers of different bands, different styles, and then you'll notice you're kind of getting bored with copying exactly. You gradually get there and you find your sound. I came up that way. I know there's some people that are just prodigies that could pick up an instrument and go. Yeah, I had a little bit of a, climb with that. I mean, finding your sound, Joe, as you had mentioned, finding your own unique sound, I think is more important than ever. If you want to stick out in the webosphere, you're going to want to have something that somebody could latch onto in some form or another. And there's nothing wrong with, and as Lucas, you had mentioned, there's nothing wrong with being proud of your influences and not denying who you sound like. Too often there's so many bands that sound very much like another one that came before, and they denied, and then years later coming out, oh yeah, we love such and such. We
were a such and such tribute band before we got started.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that too.
I mean, I'm not telling bands, go out and rip people off, but while you're in the garage, find your sound, take the time. And we were kind of mentioning before, if I can segue here, there's a lot of artists, Joe, especially with running the supporting your local music and connecting to all these local artists. There are a lot of artists that kind of want to skip, the garage days and, put themselves out there before they really have anything to offer and build all this hype. But, where is the product that we want? It's all advertising, but where's the product?
I think just a band like Godsmack bothered me originally because they were asked about their Alice in Chains influences.
That's who came to my mind, too.
Right, and they said, well, we like Alice in Chains, but we don't really think they influence us. You're called Godsmack. Shut up. Just own it, man. Own it. There's no doubt that Kitchen Knife Conspiracy, when we first started, we were influenced by this album by a band called 6 Feet Under, called Haunted. I mean, we listened to that in 1997, 96, 98. That was something we really liked. There's no doubt about it that we were also influenced by, hardcore bands. We were definitely influenced by Sepultura. There's no doubt about that. It's there. But by melding them together in our own attempt to make our own thing, it separated us from those things. I don't think when you hear a Kitchen Knife album, you go, this sounds just like 6 Feet Under, but it's definitely there. And so it's okay to let those influences shine through. If you don't, you're just trying to make something that's not you. I think that there has to be a certain separation from what you're doing, but to not have influences, to not try to wear those on your sleeve, you're doing yourself and your eventual listener a disservice, because that's got to be there. What's the point of listening to all that music if it's not going to influence what you yourself are creating?
And, I mean, let's look at it this way. There's so much out there. If you lived under a rock your whole life, never listened to anything, ever, you never had an outside influence of music, but you learned the guitar, you would be playing something it's out there. It's natural. It's the flow of music. Music comes natural. It's a natural thing.
Yeah, and I listened to that Pharrell track. I listened, and I avoided Blurred Lines for a long time because I knew what it was, and I avoided listening to it.
You ever seen the video?
No. I haven't. I know. I heard it's super hot, but I haven't watched it.
Popular line dance song.
Yeah, people like it. Yeah. Well, the first time I actually heard it was Weird Al's song "Word Crimes," where he had parodied it, and that was my first time actually hearing what blurred lines sound like. And then I was like, oh, this Marvin Gaye web, I have to listen to it, and I listened to it. I love Marvin Gaye. I listened to it, and I just don't hear it. I don't. I hear a little bit of an influence of a style. I hear some similar cowbell, but this isn't like a Vanilla Ice, David Bowie, and Queen ripoff, like Under Pressure and Ice Ice Baby. This is not that kind of ripoff. So where's the line drawn?
Off Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, I can't believe David Bowie would do that. Yeah, it's just, like Lucas had mentioned earlier, you've got 12 notes. You can organize them so many thousands of ways, and then it's done. And so over the history of music, I think it's going to become easier to find something from the past and say, boy, this sounds just like this. Mm-hmm. So I think we're opening a Pandora's box a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if I can quote Pharrell, he said that this ruling handicaps artists. And then another quote after this verdict was announced, he says, there was no infringement. You can't own feelings and you can't own emotions in music. There are only the notations and the progression, and those were different. Mm-hmm. But I can't quote word for word, but I know that Ozzy Osbourne had said something along the lines of, eventually the bands that you listen to as a teenager, the bands that you like are going to find their way into your music. One way or another, they're going to find their way into your own music. But then the other side of that is I've also heard Eddie Van Halen say that when he's in writing mode, he puts away all of his vinyl. He doesn't listen to the radio because he doesn't want that to happen, or maybe that's his way of minimizing it. So, sure that like anything else, there's exploits and there's a polarity to this issue. But I guess I'm leaning more towards Lucas and Fred's argument that our heads would explode if we had to think of something completely original every time we write a song.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what? Every time a snare beat falls on 2 and 4, that's a copy?
Right.
Anytime there's a G chord sustained for 4 counts, that's your copy,
Right. We're not dealing with jazz fusion here. I mean, this is like rock and roll is at its heart. It's got a very similar quality in many cases, which makes everyone go, yeah, this is why I like this. And even something, and I don't love Pharrell and Robin Thicke, although I liked Alan Thicke. I don't like Robin Thicke and what they're doing, but at the same time, I cannot hear enough of a similarity there where I think they should. First of all, isn't it amazing that a song can make $7.4 million in an age right now where music's supposed to be
in
dead?
a Spotify age.
Yeah, the fact that it's made that much money.
Are you looking at the article right
I have
now?
some information about it.
How much did that song make in all? Because wasn't it like $16 or $18 million?
It was about half, wasn't it? Isn't that what it was? Then they give about half the money.
I don't think it was even quite half, and like that's amazing. Like to be able to lose a lawsuit and lose 7.3 million or 4 million and still have more than that left.
Right.
My question too is, anybody that paid for any advertising, that the rights to that song, now how does that affect that? Does some of the money get to Marvin Gaye's estate?
Right.
Say if NBC bought, used 30 seconds of it in a clip,
right?
Does that money go?
Who's that money go to?
Yeah, I wonder if it goes, if they get a percentage of it forever.
And I definitely, I would have to agree with Pharrell. When he called me up and told me, he was like, it's gonna cripple a lot of the new songwriters, and I was like, it'll be all right, Pharrell.
You'll be okay. You still have a nice hat, by the way.
Yeah, but it definitely.
I knew that over the phone you could tell that he had that hat.
Yeah.
on.
Oh yeah.
you could sense it.
We were on FaceTime
Yeah.
because that's how we roll.
Didn't like Jason Mraz rock that hat first?
Yeah,
but not as who wore it better,
Right.
But
that's
it,
the most important thing.
Right.
Did you see?
The only thing I found was it said that the album, as of May 2014, sold 731,000 copies in the United States.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't have any sales figures.
It's still strange that is a lot when it used to be millions was no problem.
In
I mean, it still
2000, that
should.
would be a flop on a major
yeah,
label.
right,
If
yeah.
you weren't doing a
few
million,
yeah, you were in trouble, yeah. But now they had to give some of that back. I just feel like you need to have those influences there. And if I didn't, as a person who plays music and writes music, if I didn't have that on my sleeve, I would feel like I'm really selling myself short by trying to disregard everything.
But that's definitely now. Are you going to think about that? Or is the normal songwriter going to think about that now when they're putting something out? Like, well, wait a minute. I better listen to this riff again. This kind of sounds a little bit too much like Kitchen Knife Conspiracy. Like, I better not put this out.
Another thing too is we just mentioned all the money that's made. And of course, no offense to Fred, but if some death metal band in Timbuktu tried to come after you saying you ripped off, how much money would you have to offer them?
Well,
this song made money.
Made lots
in
of
an
money.
age where songs aren't making that much money.
Right.
So somebody found a vague connection, I think, and saw dollar signs.
Right.
And, pushed hard enough for it.
In anywhere where Marvin Gaye's making money, I'm happy. To be truthful with you, I'm fine with who it is getting the money. I am.
Right.
Because he didn't really have exactly a good father-son relationship going on in his life. So it's good to see that at least his estate is making some money off of it. I don't know if that connection was blatant enough.
Yeah.
Although Pharrell has a history of doing that kind of thing. I don't know if it's blatant enough for you to say, yeah, this is definitely stolen. I don't hear it.
You could take, just focusing on a particular era, you take the disco era, a lot of those songs sound a lot alike. They're like 16th notes on the hi-hat, same tempo, neighborhood, the harmonies. There was a lot of falsetto back then. So
what about the late 80s LA glam scene?
Oh, yeah.
How many people owe David Cassidy their look? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And like the band that comes to mind for me is Sublime. I've always disliked Sublime immensely. Everyone who listens to music from that era is like, how could you not like Sublime? because that What I Got song reminded me so much of the Beatles' Lady Madonna, I couldn't handle it.
Really?
Like
I'm
the
gonna have
melody
to
line,
listen
that
to the two.
do, that is Lady Madonna. Like, it bothered me so much that I had to turn off from that band, even though the rest of their stuff wasn't ripping off anything, and I don't think they intentionally did it. But if he listened to the Beatles at some point, I feel like he had to know, oh, this sounds a little bit like Lady Madonna, quite a bit actually. But that's why I turned them off. That's why I
Might
didn't.
also not been high enough.
Maybe he wasn't.
Because-
Eventually he was, but not
You know.
not at that point.
Pretty sure that most people that rock out to Sublime are pretty high.
Pretty
Just
still
I
out of
don't
their
think they
minds.
notice.
Yeah, that might be also. Yeah, that might be another thing.
I got to admit, as an occasional songwriter, that there have been times where I've been, messing around on the guitar and found some riff or some progression that says, well, it makes me think, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I'll explore that riff the next day and realize that it's just something that I'm listening to. Realize that it's
I do it
something
all the
that
time.
was in my head. Yeah, so I think that happens. And a matter of fact, I pinpointed a specific instance of that. I seen a band at the Rex in Pittsburgh called Wild Child, and they said, "Here's our new song. We want you guys to hear it." And they started it up, and it was identical to the hook in the song by the Front Bottoms. It was so identical. I almost wanted to, out of like a friendship or sympathy or like looking out for the band, like pull one of them aside and say, hey, you guys might want to look into your new song. It's not just similar, it's like identical. So I think what you listen to sometimes subconsciously finds its way into your writing process, and it's not necessarily sinister, but it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I had a song the one time that I wrote. My buddy Julian told me. Julian all night long ago. He told me, that song reminds me of something from the 80s. I can't remember what it was. It was something I had never listened to, like Peebo Bryson or something like that, because Julian listens to Peebo Bryson apparently. And I put it on, and he was right. The similarity was there. I didn't steal it because I'd never heard it, and I never really want to hear it again. But it was Peebo Bryson, and it was very similar to what I'd done.
And that's my point of, never having any type of influence. You still wrote something like that, and it's bound to happen.
It's there.
It's there, and it's just, you didn't do it on purpose.
Right.
You were just awesome on accident.
Awesomely Peebo Bryson, yes.
Well, I think what I wanted to do is maybe just play a song before we wrap up. And I wanted to play the song by the band First in Space, because if you're a First in Space fan, you probably noticed that a portion of our intro is a song by First in Space. And
I like First in Space. Those guys are good dudes. Bo Baseman is always out and about.
Yes.
In his
Very outspoken.
his
Yes,
punk
he
rock,
is.
pop punk angst. He's always around, and I like what they do.
I tell you, to see Bo's comments on Facebook and to meet him right at first, doesn't feel approachable, but that guy is very easy to talk to.
Oh, yeah,
you
absolutely.
know where you stand with them.
Yeah,
All the time.
He's a good dude. So if you see him somewhere, buy him a beer.
Yeah.
Maybe
he's
two.
Good. Yeah, he's a good dude. He actually, the first time he saw me play with White Cadillac, he showed up and he was like, "Oh, cool, you got a lot of drums there. I'm sure you don't use all of those, huh?" And I'm like, "Well, I use the toms enough." He's like, "Well, you don't need all those. You can get rid." And after I played, he's like, "Okay, use the toms enough." And that was like the my acceptance from Bo Baseman was that he liked that I used my toms.
He
And
plays
so-
like a Charlie Watts three-piece, don't he?
Yeah, that's why he told me I had too many drums. But after I was done, he says, "Okay, you use them all. You can keep them." And then we were friends after that. He's so I think that in that band itself, I think that they're trying to do something that is cool and unique to this area. So I'm glad to see that they're going to get some props here.
Yes.
All right, so the name of the song is Go Away, actually. And again, it's the song we use for our intro. So let's listen to First in Space, Go Away.
just go away? Will you just go away? Will you go away? Will you just go away? Will you go away? And I will send it home with you. Will you just go away? What does it mean to you?
This is Andy Powder from the band Dust Crushers. And speaking of music, you're listening to it.
All right, that track was off the album In the Red, and you can find that at the First in Space website or at CD Baby or at iTunes. And also look out for a new solo release by Johnny Stanek.
I met an Yngwie Malmsteen person, and once you get the hang of his name, you know, he's really incredible. I really did. I bought his album the other day, and I threw my guitar out. I said, why bother? Why bother, you know? Use it as a coffee table, you know, because I can't play the thing like that. He's great. I like the way he puts Yngwie J. Malmsteen on his album, so you don't confuse him with all the other Yngwie Malmsteens in the business.
So our introduction mentions the different organizations that we come from and our different, separate endeavors. But let's just go around now real quick and just talk a little bit about what else that you guys do.
Well, for anyone that knows of the Raw Alternative, I was the host of that for about 3 years, and we're now online, rawalternative.com, and I just taken my love for music to the next level. I've always enjoyed writing about bands and always enjoyed the ideas of different music-related topics, and so I've expanded into art and poetry as well with the Raw Alternative, and like to interview bands. A couple months back, we reviewed the latest from Kitchen Knife Conspiracy. Yeah, we've featured Resonant in the past, as well as a handful of Mind Rocket alum harnessing Idle Shades, to name a few. So I kind of take my passion for music and try to branch out, and by doing so, try to connect people with what's going on in the scene, and maybe bridging any gaps with what's going on with our scene and what's going on a national front.
Joe?
Well, I just, been playing around here forever and had a break in Chapless Larry and was kind of bored, didn't have anything else to do, so I started supporting your local music. And I started it as just a Facebook page, basically, to try to reach out and try to share a few things, maybe help people see things that they wouldn't normally see, because I'm a very energetic people person. If you've ever met me, like, you've talked to me. It's that simple. Like, if you've seen me in public, you've probably had words with me. And so I've tried to kind of bridge the gap between different people in this area, because there's a lot of different cliques and a lot of circles and people that don't know who this person is or that person is. So it started as just a Facebook page to try to get people together, and grew into putting on shows at Chippers for any band that wants to play a show. It's pretty simple. We try to not keep anybody out of it. If anybody wants to play, they're welcome to come play. And it's really turning into a lot bigger thing than I ever thought it would have. But I have a ton of help now I started out just myself, really, but Chris Young helps out a lot. Jen Greco does a lot of work for us. Rick is actually on his other persona is part of supporting your local music, and he does a lot to help out. Seth, everybody knows Seth from Orwellian. If you don't know Seth, you go find him right now, and you give him a big, sweaty hug. He does a whole lot, too, and just jumped on board. And we're really hoping to try to get more and more people involved and make it more of a everybody involved running the page, and it's everybody. So far, it seems to be working. It's taking off a little bit more. You know, our shows aren't quite as elaborate as some, but they work for most people.
Right on. Now, Lucas, in addition to being a very knowledgeable, well-spoken dude, you are also the bass player for the band Resonant.
It's true. It's super true. I play bass in that band every time that band plays. It's great.
So he thinks.
You know, at least at least it looks like I am anyway. It feels like I am. I don't know if I'm plugged in or not. And, I've been in some bands before, but, this one it's a heck of a lot of fun. I like what we're doing, and, I hope everyone else likes what we're doing too. But aside from that, I mess around with mechanical things. I build stuff out of metal, I sit around and listen to stoner rock, pretty much it, really.
Very cool. So we're all talking about what we do, our projects, and I think you can trace back to why we're here today at Mind Rocket in the first place. I think it's about that little high school kid that hands the mixtape to the guy on the bus or the friend in art class or, in homeroom and says, hey, man, I heard this band over at my friend's house. They're tough, they're tight, and they're heavy, they're dark, whatever it might be. But we all come from that place where we want to turn people on to what we like, and it lacks self-interest. I mean, it's a giving thing. So I think every once in a while we have to remind ourselves of that and pat ourselves on the back. Now, Fred, what do you do when you're not jamming, headbanging, drumming? What do you do outside of metal and rock?
I mean, I like to play in White Cadillac and Kitchen Knife. That's kind of been the thing that I enjoy. I play some solo stuff. Outside of music, my career is kind of what gets my focus. I graduated from YSU in 2000 with an English degree, and I started teaching at Warren G. Harding High School. I've been there for 15 years now. I teach the video editing and broadcasting class over there. I have about 70 students. I teach them how to edit video using Adobe Premiere, Photoshop. They make music videos, short films, PSAs, commercials. And it's just a really good chance to influence young people and to let them learn to be free with their creative mindset. They don't feel restricted. They can write short films and scripts. They give performances. They edit these things together. They share them with the 1,600, 1,700 kids at Harding High School. It's on cable TV, on Time Warner Cable. PTV is the station. We're on there all the time. So really my career is,
Can any of that stuff be found like on YouTube or anything as well? Or?
You can get it on a site called SchoolTube. I can't really share things on YouTube with the students, but there's a site called SchoolTube. And if you go to SchoolTube and type in WSCN, which is the Warren Student Communication Network, you'll see we have well over 1,000 videos for sharing. I've been doing that program for over 10 years now. And it's really a nice way to have a positive influence on, the youth, which I think is important. I love my job, and I love that I get to work with kids who get to be creative and do what they want to do. I never have to force them to work because they love what they're creating so much. And so it's really a great experience for me to be there for all these years. I wouldn't want to teach anywhere else. And so I plan on being there for the rest of my career. So teaching is definitely, a love of mine as well. It's not just music, but I love being a teacher and hopefully shaping kids with a little confidence to just go for it and do what they want to do.
I would definitely think that something, not to discredit any other teachers, but something that you're doing is definitely, opening up kids' minds a lot more than taking phys ed.
It makes them,
They want to be there, like you said. They're happy because they get to create something they want to create, and creating something that you could look at and say, wow, I've made that is so self-rewarding, and it's great.
It is, and they feel like it's theirs. And I think if you ask most adults, hey, could you make a music video? Could you make a short film? They would feel completely uncomfortable with having to even just know where to begin. My kids plan it, film it, edit it, and then they put it out there for the world to see, whether good or bad. And it's a very family-type atmosphere, and I think that it is everything now that I hoped it would be when I first took over the program 10 years ago. It's really a nice chance for those kids to express themselves, and they need that.
What grade is that?
9 through 12. 9 through 12, yeah.
And I could tell you from firsthand experience, that's a very crucial time, because if you guys could believe it, at one point I was actually a lot more of a jackass than I am now.
Wow, that's actually,
yeah.
I'm not mad, I'm impressed.
Wow.
But I
we
did
can believe that.
You've grown.
Too. Yeah.
I had one particular English teacher. I had him in both 9th and 10th grade, and he had a way of relating to his students in similar methods of what you're talking about, what you're alluding to, and it changed me. It turned me around. It's I had all this pent up, teen angst in that, but I loved writing. I loved music. I had a passion. Well, use that as a positive. Channel your energy this way and be creative. And if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right.
So
It started you down that path. And I think the kids can tell. People don't give kids enough credit, but they know. They can tell when you don't like them. They can tell. And I genuinely like the kids. I really enjoy it. And I think that's important, because if you don't like them, they know. And so it's really, every day is different. I never go and have the same day at work. That's more wealth than you can ever hope to have, not hating your job and really getting something different every day. That's what I've achieved, that I'm most happy with, is that I get to have a different day every day at Harding High School, and that's pretty sweet.
If you don't like kids, you definitely shouldn't be a teacher.
You should probably get out.
kidding.
That's right.
Dig
And
ditches.
I think a lot of teachers need to take note of that.
Yeah.
When I don't know what the education program's like, but I do think they need to integrate some idea of what it is to work with children. And I'm not just saying, your average kid. I mean, there's special needs kids. There's kids that come from, terrible home lives, all these different kinds of personalities that you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I think that people need to know what they're in for before they dive into this.
Dive into that.
One thing I wanted to mention, Joe mentioned YouTube earlier, and we open up the episode, as we usually do, as well as close the episodes with our Mind Rocket Project session songs. And if you're interested in that, you can go to the Jimmy Fro Show channel at YouTube, and you can find all of those past sessions. And if you're a band wanting to do your own session, you can inbox us, and we'll reach out to you. So as we wrap up this topic, let's just kind of go around the room and everybody think of their short summary on our topic of the day, and we'll get the heck out of here. Rick?
Oh, I just say, to aspiring musicians, it's awesome to have a wide palette of influences, and it's all awesome to have a smaller palette of influences that you really love, that you're really passionate about. I would say, don't be afraid to experiment, though. Find your voice, because when you don't want to run the risk of blatantly ripping them off without even meaning to.
Influences are definitely very important when songwriting and creating music or art of any type. And definitely you should never put a cap on anything you're doing. If it's something that sounds like, I don't think that's really our sound, still explore that option. Go down that road. Who knows? It might be something that isn't quite your sound, but man, this fits nice. This is good. Let's see what happens here. So, it's creativity, and art is a fickle animal. You never know where it's going to strike and bite you.
I say that if you're a kid or anyone who's in a band and playing some music, just do whatever you feel like doing. People like what they like, and they're going to sound like what they like, and that's fine. And if you ever get to the level where there's so much money involved, that keep in mind there's still going to be like millions and millions left for you. And until then, no one's going to care, and neither should you. Just rock out, plug in, rock out, turn it up.
Yeah, I feel like anything you listen to, if you're planning on being a musician, if you want to write music, I like to think of it as like this gigantic pyramid, and everything you listen to is adding another block to that pyramid. Like, don't quit stacking those. Allow them to influence you. Accept them as influence. And I think that will only broaden your base. That's only going to make your pyramid wider and stronger. It's going to allow you to bring that in and make you a better songwriter. So I think you need to accept your influences and don't try to run away from them on purpose. They're there for a reason. Don't waste the listen. Use the listen and allow it to shape what you make.
Absolutely. And, I think I want to just say, we need to get real about this, because when you think about like when the guitar was invented, when it was just a really hazy idea, as some birch wood and some copper strings, or however the first guitar was constructed, what's the likelihood that YYZ was going to be written and played on that guitar within the first year after being created from scratch? When the first piano was crafted with ivory or whatever it was constructed with, what are the odds that Brahms' Lullaby was going to come from that box of ivory and wood within a month, within 5 years of being constructed? And the point I'm getting at is that influence, it's in the air, it's inspiration. I think those two words can be conflated with some artistic acceptance, because you're inspired, you're influenced, and that's why you're writing music in the first place. All right. You guys have been awesome. Fred, thank you so much for being a guest panelist.
It's been a freaking blast. Thanks for having me.
We want to thank Josh Roman here at Mind Rocket Studio for taping our episodes. Special thanks to Adam Jackson for our show intro. Also, we want to make sure our people that listen, our humans and others from other planets, at 9 p.m. on Sunday nights is the Homegrown Show, so we want them to go to www.933fmthewolf.com. There is a link, a little button that says Listen Live, where Viking Jim and Gary Angelo listen to the music of Northeast Ohio and I believe Western Pennsylvania. Yeah. Close enough?
Yes.
Check them out. Also, a new podcast from the members of Third Class, specifically Lee Boyle. It's the Nursery Podcast. Really, really great idea. I'm jealous of this podcast and its format. It's nostalgic, sentimental. It's interesting. It's cutting edge. Occasionally vulgar, but in the best way. Nursery Podcast, you can find that at SoundCloud. Also, Youngstown Rock Show on Fridays at Golden String Radio. And check us out on Facebook. Submit your questions. Maybe we'll debate your topic the next time on Speaking of Music. All right, taking us out of here is another Mind Rocket project session by the band The Hawkeyes. Song's called Miracle Man. Thanks, guys.